Oh, this one's gonna be a special interview. I'm just gonna get right into it. If you followed my little excursion of 2 years ago, you recognize my guest. I'm just gonna bring him on right now. Mr. Showtime himself, Brandon Lowe.
What's up, man?
What's up, buddy?
I'm good. I got a bigger beard from the last time you
Yeah,
saw me.
you're looking like a Viking now. I like it.
I
I like it a lot.
I wore the Stone Cold style hat too for the
Stone
podcast.
Cold. I love it, man. How's it feel to have the roles reversed?
Oh yeah. It's a little different for sure. It's just good to see you doing this, man. I see you're using that microphone I gave you. That's good.
This is really good quality, surprisingly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I used that when I first started doing radio stuff and podcasting when I first got into that years back. And so, yeah, that microphone has kind of a piece of history for me, too.
Wow. Then that makes it even more special.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you said you got into broadcasting years ago. What made you first want to? I know you're a big sports fan, but what made you first want to look at that and go, "That's what I want to do"?
Quite honestly, I went to a school called Columbus State Community College when I was in Columbus. And I originally went to school for business. And I was going to I guess I didn't know if I was going to own my own business, but usually everybody told you, business degrees, if you get that, you could do anything with it. So it's kind of like one of those generic, degrees or whatever. And I went there. Things didn't work out the way I planned on it. So I was driving one day, and a commercial from then was called the Ohio Center for Broadcasting. Now it's called the Ohio Media School. And it was like, "Do you want to be a broadcaster?" It was like one of those ads that,
80s commercials.
yeah, well, one of those ads now I'm writing, for commercial radio. So, and I said, "Yeah, that sounds good." And I went to the school. They had you do sort of an audition, but most people just get in and for the interest. It's a school that I recommend for anybody. It's in, I think they're in Chicago and Cleveland and Cincinnati. They're like in most of the larger Midwest cities. I think they have one in Denver too. So they do have one out west. But it was just a school for me because I didn't have to do English. I didn't have to do math. I didn't have to do any of that stuff. It was just all broadcasting. It was TV and radio. And it was taught by, folks that were in that market in Columbus and radio, which is like a top 35 market. And I got to extern with the morning show, WCOL, Woody and the Wake Up Call in Columbus, which is one of the biggest morning shows on this side of the country. So learned a lot with that, but really just to develop my passion into it because I think I always had a creative side. My family are all artists on my dad's side, whether they were into music or they were drawing or painting. And so my creation and my artistic abilities came out in radio. And, as I try to keep that camera straight. As I do commercial production, so I have to produce commercials and make cool sounds and do all this other stuff. So there's an artistic part of it that keeps you interested in it outside of just being an announcer or DJ or a sports talk host or whatever you do. So I think it was the artistic aspect of it. And of course, let's be honest, it's cool to be on the air and be on the radio and people hear you. I have people in my neighborhood sometimes that listen to the mix and they go, "Hey, I heard you, talk about this." And those are some cool moments because a lot of times you don't know how many people are paying attention to what you're saying. So, but yeah, that's really how I got into it. I kind of just fell into it hearing a radio commercial about a radio school.
It. Shut up, Alexa.
She's getting you
We're
the
having
rate.
an interview here. Yeah,
She's getting your radio schools. She heard
exactly.
me. Yeah.
um, I can definitely agree with you. It's definitely a different feeling when you're on air. It's a different. You turn into a completely different person. It literally makes you feel like a kid inside. Um, and I feel like with now having more experience with my own show, obviously we started the off the script thing together,
Mm-hmm.
and now I've kind of took it over and made it into what I'm going to try to do with it. And I owe you all that credit because you are the first person that saw something in me that really said, "Let me take a shot and see where this goes."
Well, it was, and it's with anything, if you want to be great at something, and it's a cliche saying, but I always say cliches are those because they're true. You know, if you have a passion for something, you enjoy doing it, then those are the things that you should do. You should never do anything for money. You should do things because you enjoy doing them and you want to do them. And that'll make it easier to be great at what you do because you enjoy it every day. And, every job's stressful, but I'll tell you right now, I used to work blue collar jobs and there's nothing wrong with that because there's good money in it. But I would come home tired and just achy and just not happy. And now I get to sit in a comfy studio, get fat and, and, and talk on the radio and create things. And, you know, that's a beautiful life to have, man. So, and the more you do it, the better you're going to get. And I always tell you that. So the more you do this show, the more comfortable, I could already tell you're more comfortable talking on the mic and the better that you'll get. That's the more you do it, it's as easy as that.
I mean, to me, if you don't get butterflies, even if it's just me talking to you, I've known you for 2 years now. I still get butterflies every time I do an interview. And to me, if you don't get butterflies, then you need to leave and quit doing what you're doing. Because the day you quit getting butterflies is the day you lose your passion.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Even I used to do stand up too, and
Oh boy.
that takes a lot to get up there and tell jokes, and but after you do it, even if you don't do well, you're still very exhilarated because you got a lot of that stuff off, that you out of your head, and you got it out, and you got to tell people how you feel about things, or you tell stories, or so it's very similar to that in radio. Is you go on the microphone, you're entertaining people, but at the same time you're telling them about your day, you're relating to them, and that's for you. I feel like just be relatable. Don't try to talk over people's heads, or just try to relate to, like, you like wrestling, you love wrestling. And obviously this podcast was, started radio show or whatever to, highlight wrestling. And, that's something that you're going to have to hit with your audiences, those wrestling fans, and how to relate to them. You know what they want to hear, what they like. So just, as long as you stay on that, man, you'll do good.
I've actually already, not to brag or anything, but I didn't tell you yet, but I was actually on the biggest wrestling podcast right now. He won Podcast of the Year. He just got his award in like 2 days ago, and I was just on that the other day. So
What is it?
It's Wrestling Review Society on YouTube.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Awesome, man. Congratulations.
thank you.
How'd it go?
It was I was a little nervous because like being a TikToker, like I'm not really big, but I've kind of got a little bit of a following on there, and we were on there with the biggest wrestling TikToker. He has over let me check his stuff actually. I think it was 7.5 million likes
Wow.
across everything. So he was on there, and then we had Willie Finesse, which is a professional wrestler, and then of course Kevin. So I was kind of nervous, but I just thought back to everything you taught me and everything you told me, just to be comfortable, be yourself. And I fit right in, man. And it was just so much fun to be surrounded by people that love the same thing you do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. A lot of times it's just the best that do it is just conversation. You know what I mean? You're just having a conversation like you and I are doing right now. Like, there's times where I'll prepare for an interview and I'll map out some stuff, but it's only because I don't feel comfortable with, like, yesterday I interviewed the number one wrestler in the country, Noah Adams, up at WVU. And
He's good at what he does. Very good.
yeah, and I interviewed him yesterday. And wrestling as a sport's different. It's not like football and basketball where you can kind of throw in some of those softball questions about the team and all this other stuff. Wrestling's like a whole different type of preparation, conditioning, like just everything about it's different. Your strategy is different. It's just different. So I don't have a ton of knowledge about the fundamentals. So I kind of really had to do my research, and I really did map out that interview yesterday because I didn't really have any of those off the top of my head I've done before, where I could just throw in, oh, what about this and what about that compared to other sports. It's definitely a challenging. It's up there with golf. When you do golf or soccer players, or there's a different aspect of those sports that if you don't follow all the time, you really have to research what you're asking him and what you're talking about. And yeah, I enjoyed the conversation with him. I'm actually going to put that up on social media tonight.
Good. Very good. I man, I found a new love and respect for collegiate and amateur wrestling. I was on the wrestling team for like 6 to 7 months, bro, and oh my god, when I tell you that was the hardest thing that I have ever done in my 17 years, almost 18 years on this planet.
Yeah, I mean, it's you got to stay in your weight class, so you got to make sure that you're cutting weight, as they call it. So it's either if you either have to gain weight to get to stay in, but you have to stay in like a certain weight class. And then your conditioning just unreal. Like conditioning has to be everything, because if the guy wears you down, because it's just constant, just grabs and grapples and just trying to keep the guy pinned, because you got to pin your guy to get the points.
Yep.
So it's tough, man. I mean, that's some serious conditioning, and that's why you see those guys going in the UFC, because it's like Conor, Conor McGregor, not a wrestler,
who got his ass kicked the other night.
Yeah.
Out there.
Yeah, and you've shown that in UFC you have to have wrestling skills to be good at what you do. I mean, you could be a striker and you can knock somebody out, but if they get you on the ground and you're not necessarily good on the ground and your conditioning's awful, that could be trouble.
Yeah, it definitely could be. Dang, man. It's like one of those things, like, I remember walking into that room for the first time and just feeling the mat, and then, like, I got slammed for the first time. And I was like, this is off the script. This is my show, so I can cuss now. I'm not on.
Yeah.
So I remember getting slammed for the first time, and I was just like, shit, that hurts so bad. I was like, okay, all right, okay. It's like when you get slammed for the first time, or you get hit, or like something happens that you didn't expect. It's a real eye opener.
Yeah.
Especially being a pro wrestling fan, going in there and hearing the story of Kurt Angle, Olympic gold medalist, and he, but it was a real eye opener.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't work for me. I was like, nope. Stick to talking stuff behind the microphone, because that's what I'm good at. So more on off the script. We did about 5 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
The reason it stopped is because life happens. The amount of people that I get messages like once a month. Where is it? What happened to it? Life just happens. He has a job. I have school. I'm trying to focus on this. So it kind of just got lost in the shuffle, but it's always had a very special place in my heart. It's something that I will never forget, because it was the first experience that I ever had doing this. And it really, like I told him, I think it was the second time I'm there. I stepped in that studio the first day and I knew I was home. It's where I belonged. It was really an emotion. I didn't never like cry in front of nobody, but when you grow up being told that you won't never achieve your dreams by kids and teachers, and to literally pull the podcast up in front of them and just watch their jaws drop as they hear your voice on a major platform as SoundCloud, it was really something special for me, because all those kids that said, oh, your voice is too, raspy or too deep, or because your hand doesn't work, you won't never be, So it was nice just to shove that in their faces and be like, look where I'm at now. And now they're all trying to show up, because I'm kind of semi blowing up on TikTok. So you're not getting on my show as much as you want to.
Hey, it is good, but those type of things in life, I think everybody goes through it. Obviously, you've had different circumstances that most will never go through, and I admire that about you, that you were able to overcome, adversity and take what those people were saying and use it as motivation. Because a lot of people can go in a dark place and they can really, really allow that to hurt them in many ways. So for you to take advantage of the opportunity that presented to you to come up and learn the basics and show you the ropes, to keep it as a wrestling, see what I did there, show you the ropes and really just show, and I could just tell when you walked in how excited you were to be there, and you were just excited to be a part of it, which was something that was awesome to do. And it's good catching up with you now, and it's good to see you doing well with this show. But yeah, that's good that you took what people said and use as motivation. And that's an advice to everybody out there, no matter how old you are, or, whatever is going on in your personal life. Of course, everybody's going through this whole COVID situation, and school's different, and
Oh,
yeah, there's the
uh,
work's different, and there's just so much different things going on with families. People are losing their jobs and businesses, but at the end of the day, we as Americans and as just humans, man, we learn to adapt, and we learn to take those challenges and do great things with them. So, and you're an example of that. So good to see you have this show up. Good to see you're getting a following over at TikTok. I'm too old to be over on TikTok. I've already
hey, bro.
established that.
Hey, you'd be surprised. There's like 50-year-olds that act like kids on there. So, so
Those are clowns.
yeah, those are really close. But it was just a special moment for me to have that show, and you taught me so much in how to carry myself and do this. Uh, for those of you who are wondering why I do what I do, it's because of that man right there. If it wasn't for that man right there, and I'm not just kissing his ass, I'm telling the truth, I would not be in the position I am today, and I would not be sitting here talking to him doing this and be successful as I am doing this.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, man. Um, and the thing is that I will tell you too, as you learn in this business, is take as much kudos as you get, but take the criticism that you get the most. Take the criticism, and whether it's just haters, or it's actually someone like myself that's in the business, or somebody gives you advice. Make sure you also listen to that all along the way. No matter how big you get, you can be Howard Stern, you can be you can be these huge, JR, you can be these big broadcasters, but always take in new advice, and how you can make your show better. And because that's what I do. I have people give me kind of advice. Hey, what can I add here? Can I add a graphic? Can I do this? What's the content? Because the more you do that, the better you're going to get. And I take little pieces. I've taken little pieces from different things that I've seen people do, whether it's green screen stuff or graphics or the content. And it's okay to do that, make it your own, and then just kind of put it all together. That's the beautiful part about doing things like this in the shows is, you're not gonna have a great show every time, but you're gonna have those ones that you look back and go, man, that was awesome and fun to do.
By the way, to answer this person's comment, thank you for showing up. We appreciate your support. That is my co-host to my old podcast and a very, very good friend of mine who is a very, very talented broadcaster. So thank you for tuning in, and be sure to hit that subscribe button and like button for me, and I'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll tell them. I'll tell them my background. I'm currently at LM Communications, which
Yeah, I was
is
gonna say you moved, didn't you? You moved from WQE, didn't you?
I was at Bristol doing a sports talk show there. One best talk show, which was nice, and had a really good run with that. And then I was in production, commercial production, which means I produce commercials. And then I actually got laid off right right after vacation.
Wow.
And
Was it due to COVID or
no, they were having, I don't know. I honestly do not know.
full of their
But
own shit?
yeah, I don't know. But no, I gave a good 9 years, almost 10 years there. And then now I'm at LM, which is Rock 105 and the Mix. And I'm on the Mix from 3 to 7, Monday through Friday. So I'm the afternoon drive guy. And then I also still do my sports talk show on their sports station. And then I am production manager. So I'm the manager of commercials. And then I do my own side projects, which is my podcast. I'm doing a high school football podcast. I do color commentary for South Charleston football. And then what else do I do? I got a new podcast called Triple Threat Podcast coming out too.
Yeah, isn't that the music one?
The music and movie, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
music and movie.
so that'll be cool, and we're gonna do that. We were supposed to start it last month, but Ryan Pritt, who's the writer for the Gazette, and my buddy, he's busy all the time. So we're gonna kick it off this month, and it should be fun. So I'm busy constantly.
Yeah, I will tell you, when you guys have a team, because I actually have a team of it's me and two of my other friends. It's so aggravating when you're the one running the show, like when you're the one that's working on everything, and they're kind of like, "Yo, I'm busy," or like, "Hey, I can't make the show." Like tonight, we have an interview with two of the biggest independent wrestlers in the world right now, Zach Monstar and Raven Havoc. They nearly tried to kill each other. So tune in tonight at 7 p.m. on the Gorilla Position Talk Show to see that interview. But yeah, I got Caleb to come on, so Caleb will be on for an hour. I don't really trust Nate because Nate's not really professional. Nate's kind of the jokester of the crew,
Yeah.
you know, and you got two of the biggest professional wrestlers on the planet, so got to be professional.
Right.
I'm not going to keep you too much longer. I might keep you 30 minutes. I don't want to take up most of your day. I know you got a lot going on. I appreciate you taking your time to talk with me here.
Yeah, man.
So moving forward, I'm going to ask you one sports question because I know it's like you hear those all the time. Super Bowl is this weekend. Who do you think's going to win the Super Bowl?
I knew this was coming. It just depends on. I mean, honestly, it's interesting because the Chiefs defensively have not been.
Yeah, they're trash.
They haven't been good on defense all year, and they've allowed teams to come back, especially in the end of the first half and the second half. You can't argue with the Buccaneers right now. The type of defense they've been playing, they've went through, which Drew Brees hasn't been the same in probably 5 years at least with his arm.
No.
But he went through
After
Brees.
he broke his thumb, he was a little.
Yeah, and he's also, if you remember, back in the day when he was with the Chargers, he tore his rotator cuff, and a doctor told him, you want to talk about adversity and challenges we were talking about earlier, was told that he probably will never throw a football again in his life, and he worked hard to get back. And the Chargers, the Chargers were saying, hey, you're our guy, and then they drafted Phillip Rivers. And then the rest was history. Phillip Rivers
just retired this year, so.
Yeah, Rivers had a great career with the Chargers, and Brees went on to play for New Orleans, and it was kind of a match made in heaven for him in that city because that was right after Hurricane Katrina. He had a quarterback. He was broken at one point, trying to, resuscitate his career, and he did that. And then you had a city trying to rebuild itself. So it was kind of a match made in heaven between those two. But anyway, he hasn't been the same. That rotator cuff's finally wearing him down. And then that was impressive what Tampa did in Green Bay. Rodgers in that offense, best in the league. Rodgers should win the MVP tomorrow. What is it? Saturday? I think they're announcing that. He should win MVP. So that was impressive. Buccaneers defense is coming on. You got to give them a lot of credit because Brady did throw 3 interceptions in that game. As much as I like to sit here and praise Brady, as everybody should. He's 43 years old and he's going to the Super Bowl, and he's been in 14 of the last 21 championship games. And, for a conference, I mean, the guy just it goes on and on. He's had 3 different Hall of Fame careers in different spans. It's just unbelievable. But, it just depends if the Buccaneers defense is ready to take on that offense and Pat Mahomes in Kansas City, because Kansas City can win against anybody just off their offense. I mean, they've lost one game in, where are we at? Like 25 straight, I think, 24, 25 straight at this point or more since the middle of last year. So I don't know, man. It's tough to pick, but I like Tampa at home. I like their defense. I think it's going to be close, but I think, and Tom lost to Kansas City earlier in the year at Kansas City and almost brought him back. I like Tampa. I'm going to take Tampa over the Chiefs.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I was a Chiefs fan last year, which I'm an Eagles fan, which we all know how the Eagles are right now.
Oh man, that press conference with that new coach was yikes.
Yeah.
That was awkward.
Yeah. Alexa, get it. I'm an Eagles fan, so I get disappointed almost every season since we lost Nick Foles. I have a problem with Carson Wentz. You got me into football. Like, I never watched football until I started hanging around you and learning more off of you. I started getting into football really heavy. I have a problem with Carson Wentz. He's trying to be Nick Foles. He wants to be remembered. Because if we think about it, Carson Wentz ain't never going to be remembered for nothing except for the guy that ran and got his knee hurt and never been the same again. But that's a different story for a different time. So I just want to touch on this. We're only going to be here for a few more minutes.
Oh, you're right.
I just want to touch on this picture right here, and I want to talk about this picture.
Oh, yeah.
That is the day that my life was changed forever. Um, that
That
is
was
Jim Ross, for those of you who don't know. Um,
good guy.
very wholesome dude. He still talks to me to this day sometimes. I'll
That's
get
awesome.
random Instagram messages and checking in on me and stuff. So I owe a lot to him, and I owe a lot to wrestling. I've been able to touch so many people's lives in a short amount of time. We only been doing this a week, but I get messages 24/7 from people that have dyslexia and dysgraphia. And there was a dude, I think it was autism that he had. It was like mild autism, and he didn't think he could do it.
Ah,
And I said, go for it, man. Just jump in the water and see how far you can go. Um, but we did off the script, and I will say, doing this solo now, I kind of leaned on you a little bit, but I did my research every week. We had to. We were prepared. I will say the hardest part about this job that I've learned so far is getting interviews.
yeah. Yeah, that's tough. But the thing is, social media, man, you got to take advantage of that social media. I honestly half the a lot of the guests that I've gotten. Like one time, I got Jim Brewer, who's a stand-up comedian who's been on Saturday Night Live, and he was in Half Baked. If anybody saw that movie,
If
he's
anybody saw that movie.
he's the guy's like, hey man, he's the hippie guy. Was Brian, I think, was his name in that, and so I just so happened I followed along with him on Facebook, and he used to do Mets updates on Facebook that were hilarious because he's a huge Mets fan. And he just every once in a while he would throw his dates like at the end. He would throw his dates where he was going to be like the next couple weeks doing stand up. And I noticed that he was going to be in West Virginia, but it was the Panhandle casino up there, and I was like Charlestown or whatever it is. And I put two and two together. I'm like, okay, if he's going to be in West Virginia soon, he's going to want to promote his show in the state. And I was like, I'm going to reach out. I'm going to find his manager. I'm going to find, who I need to contact and relate it to that. Sometimes you got to do that. Like, hey, I know you're coming to town, and the funny part is, and this is the funniest part, is that I'm pretty sure his manager or agent or whoever I was talking to, I can't remember. I'm pretty sure they thought that I was from Charlestown, the same town he was going to, but I put Charleston because I'm in Charleston. So I think they, how people are outside of West Virginia, they didn't put two and two together. So that's how I landed that interview. They probably thought I was in Charlestown and and promoting that, that show. Little did they know Charleston and Charlestown's like 3 hours away from each other or something like that. So it's like, yeah, people may travel up there, but this is a casino performance. So like most people in that place would have to be there to be at the show. And but anyway, I landed the interview and it went really well. But things like that sometimes you have to do too. You have to kind of connect the dots and kind of research. And a lot of the people's contact info is on their website. Like if you go to the contact, like you go to the website and hit contact, it'll put like their publicist and their agent and like whoever they you have to contact to get in hold of them. But yeah, a lot of it's a lot easier nowadays than it was like a long time ago. Like a long time ago, the only time you really got interviews is when like let's just say wrestling, like when wrestling guys would come to town and they wanted to kind of go on some of these big sticks and radio and just promote it, but now it's like you got Instagram. I know Twitter, like some people you can message, some you can't, but I know Instagram, I don't know much about it, but I know it's more open to messages and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean they have to accept the request to message you.
Oh, okay.
But it's way more open, and that's the thing for me. Like, I don't mind blowing people up, because if you're really persistent about something, just chase after it. If you're
Yeah,
annoying them, that's the hardest thing for me. I don't want to annoy them, but I really want them on my show.
most of those wrestlers I would imagine would be
Some of
pretty
them
cool. I mean,
are dicks. Ryback's a dick.
yeah, but I mean, see, that's why you pick your battles and who you want to go after. Like, if somebody is pretty cool, that's another thing you got to watch too. Is like trends of like how many shows they've been on. Even if they go on like smaller podcasts, if they only go on large shows, then it's like But if they go on to like even like middle of the road or smaller podcasts, you know that they're open to a lot of media. So that's what I would do. I would just pay attention to that. Like, a lot of those guys though, like, Stone Cold, he's busy as hell. And, a lot of those guys are just got so many different things they're doing, that TV and their own podcasts and stuff, that it's hard to get them to do other stuff. But yeah, be persistent, man. You might land something.
Yeah, you got to. Leading on to my next question, I'm only going to ask you a few more. What is the nervous you've ever been to conduct an interview?
I think the first time it was either the interview I did in person, when I interviewed Randy Couture.
Oh my God!
In person, yeah, it was
Holy
It was a face-to-face interview. Just because of the career he had, he's a Hall of Famer in the UFC. He's been in movies.
Legend, man.
He's been in movies, and it was just. And I literally just watched him on like Dan Patrick's show, probably like 2 weeks before he was going to do the interview with me. So he's on this national show and on TV, and then here he is with me in studio, and it was just. Once we started talking, it wasn't that bad. I mean, he was, for a guy that can rip you in half with his bare hands anytime he wanted to, he was a very calm and just humble dude. I mean, he was a wrestling background too, so he was like a All-American or something at Minnesota or somewhere. No, not Minnesota, somewhere out west. I can't remember now. But yeah, he had a wrestling background, and yeah, he was a beast. I mean, he wasn't as big as I thought he'd be, but you can just tell that guy, like the way he carried himself, and he would just beat the hell out of you if he wanted to. But that was great. I got like an hour out of that interview. I had to break it down in two different
Parts.
parts, because it was such a long interview. And then I would say, honestly, like the first time that I interviewed Bob Huggins, just because Bob is a guy who doesn't put up with any stupid questions. He's very smart. He graduated with high honors at West Virginia when he was there. He's just a guy that doesn't put up with stupid questions. And then you got to understand his cadence. Like a lot of times he takes a long time and pauses in between answers. And sometimes if you're not, first time you start interviewing him, you have to learn that, because you'll talk over top of him. And then it just sputters the whole interview, because you've already messed it up by, talking over him, and it messes your rhythm up. So I would say that's the second most nervous I've ever been. And then now I've talked to Bob a ton of times, so he knows who I am. So it's kind of not a big deal. But yeah, I would say those two situations.
What's the hardest part about broadcasting to you?
I think I would say in music format, just being yourself. I think that's the hardest one, because you can get caught up in like doing too much of an announcer voice, or just the thing I don't like about doing music format, which is the mix or rock, or if you're on country, or is I have a dark sense of humor, and I'm very sarcastic, and you can be that way. Like rock's easier. You can go on like rock stations and be that cool rock jock and be edgy. But like stations like the mix, it's sort of like it's kind of like, it's like an older 102, or electric 102, or it's like an older classic hits. It's more poppy rock. It's more, you're supposed to be fun and stuff. And I'd say that's the hardest part, is not saying something either offensive, because I like offensive comedy, or saying something that, is just not what you should say on that station. And I have to watch myself on that a lot of times. I'd say that's the hardest part. You be yourself, but at the same time, it's like you got to kind of be a cheesier way of yourself,
Yeah.
That would say that's hard. And then, when you first start doing talk, when I was at Bristol, they had no commercials outside of PSAs and promos.
Wow.
So I would talk for 20 minutes. Everything was floating in talk formats. You have what's called a floating segment, which means your producer has to time out, to get to that top of the hour, the ID, because you have to play that legally with the FCC. So it's like, okay, you can do different minutes in each segment. But yeah, I would talk for like anywhere from like 10 to 20 minutes and have like a minute in between break, just enough to run down the hallway and get a coffee or something, come back, and I'd be talking again. So that really got me focused in on content and, what I'm saying, and getting interviews and guests. And that's a grind, man. Like you talk about getting guests. like every day having at least two people lined up, either whether it's a local person, a national person, whatever. That's a grind and talk show, especially if you don't, have the luxury like a Creedy or something where they probably have interns that get their content and their guests and, whoever when they invest a lot of money into it. So, but I wouldn't have any other way, man. I like being in it. I like getting my own guests. I like doing my own content. I like doing all that stuff because, I think you're getting more out of somebody if they put their all into it and they're at every single stop of that process. I think that's way, way better than someone going, "Hey, give me that content," or "What do you got for me today, Dave?" And then he just reads it like 5 minutes before he goes on the air, and then BS's it on his show. It's like that's just such a show business way of doing broadcasting, which is just absurd. So I would say that's challenging too, man. There's just learning, and with you, what I always told you because of that, have your stuff planned out ahead of time. It makes it easier for you, and make sure you do your research. And then, as long as you're prepared, it's an easy show. Like as long as you're prepared, you're good. You just fly right through it.
You really do. One thing I noticed about being in the radio station at WQBE, which I don't listen to another country station. Shout out to you guys. Is it's just one big family there, you know?
Yeah. That's the thing too, not to cut you off, but that's not everywhere either. I mean, family owned radio companies are where it's at. I know a lot of people in this business, their biggest thing. And when you get media is like media your goal in media is to go small market to middle market to large market. That's what it used to be. It used to be your goal was to be on ESPN or Fox or, one of these big networks, CBS. And to get there, you'd have to, like I said, go small market, like here, middle market, and then now large market with some of those nationally syndicated shows you see on TV and, all that stuff. But now it's just changed so much because, these large markets, LA, New York, Houston, Miami, any of these large markets, Philadelphia, they're going jockless, which means they're not having DJs on. They're just playing music. They're cutting a lot of corners to save money, and a lot of people don't know who anybody is. When I was at WCOL in Columbus, that building was so massive, and I met I didn't meet the same person ever outside of the morning show crew. Like I would run into new people every day because the building was so massive. I didn't know who this person was. I didn't know what they did. I wouldn't even remember. I'd be like, "Oh, okay, great." And
Holy shit, I've been working here for 5 years and I don't even know you. Who the hell are you?
It's just crazy. And their sales office was like across this. They had a courtyard in the middle of the building, and it was insane. And then when I first went up to Bristol, I was like, "This is a radio station," because it's just such a old building, and I was just like used to like this new big hip building that was in when I was in Columbus. And but yeah, it's not always glamour, and now with new podcasts and stuff, you don't really have to go up that ladder. You don't have to go small market, mid, large. Everybody can be on the national stage now because of the internet and podcasts. So I like the family atmosphere as well.
Just a few more minutes here. I'm going to drag it out to 40 minutes. That way I'll get the best out of the interview. Yeah, that's one thing I noticed about the first time I went up to the radio station with my stepmom. It was hard as hell to find because it was in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, and it was it's in a neighborhood. So
yeah.
And apparently
people riding their bikes and stuff,
Yeah. People were actually angry when they first put that up there, I guess. It used to be a TV station. And then Bristol went up there because Bristol used to actually be, I believe, at the sales office where they're at near Cross Lanes. Not Cross Lanes, but it's like Washington Street it's like what is that? North Charleston right there. Yeah. So it used to be over there, and then they moved over there as far as the programming, which is, all the guys on air and production, which is, what I did, producing commercials. And people did not like it up there. They were complaining about I guess they thought they were going to get like cancer or brain tumors from like the antennas and the radio and the airwaves, and people were claiming that they were hearing our radio station on their cell phones when they were trying to call on their phones, and it was just all this stuff. That was way back where I started there, but Yeah, it's interesting, man. You're like, yeah. I remember when I first went up there, when I moved back here from Columbus, and I put, we put in the address into, Google Maps or whatever, and I was like, where's this taking me? Because it's on top of a hill, but yeah, it's an interesting location.
Yeah, I remember the first time my dad brought me, he was getting pissed off because it's hard to remember. Like, if you've only been there once, you're not going to remember it. He's like, which way did you go? I'm like, I don't can remember. It was like a week. It's like a week ago. So he was going around in a circle for like a solid 15 minutes. And then he just got up there.
I've had guests do that, or first time co-host. You tell them where it's at. They're like, "Where am I? I'm in a neighborhood." I'm like, "Yeah, you got to go straight up the hill." And so yeah, it's pretty crazy. But once you've been there and drove there for 9 years, then then you start you definitely start remembering.
So how long have you been doing broadcasting?
Let's see, a total, like with school and actual professional. Are you talking about professional experience? I would say, let's see, I came back here and started full time in 2010. I did a little bit in school, a little over 12 years, I would say.
Dang, you're a veteran, huh?
Yeah, and like you start even younger than me in this, but I started pretty young. I was like 22, 23. So I'm only 35, even though I look like I'm 65 because I got two kids, um but yeah, yeah, man, it's been like 13 years. I think next year will be 13 years. So yeah.
I will say one of the most weirdest things when I first went there was meeting a kid for the first time.
What was it?
It's grown ass man and they call him kid.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that was I actually had like a roast joke because we were gonna do a roast one time, and can't remember what the roast joke was now, but it was a play on the kid. It's because I asked him that actually. I asked him why he goes by Kid Conley, and it's because he started broadcasting like on actually like a commercial radio station when he was like 14. Yeah, he was 14 years old.
So it was just weird to be in that position and be like calling a grown man like, "What's up, kid?" Like,
Now kids, the cool thing about Kid is he tries to act like he's a tough guy, which he does know some martial arts stuff, but he's actually one of the nicest guys you'll ever
It really is
come across. And he's done, when I got laid off there, he did my intro. He's still my voice on my intro of my high school football podcast I do. And, he's always told me anything he needs I need from him as far as voice or anything. He said he's got me. So he's a cool dude.
I need a new intro because that countdown it just bland. I gotta give somebody and get an intro done.
Put some you can. I mean, I could make you an intro. It's not that. I mean, you just tell me what you need, what you want, and you can probably lay it down on top of the countdown.
Yeah. All right, man. So I'm gonna wrap it up. It's been 43 minutes. I really appreciate you taking your time and learning a little bit more about you and where you started and where you are now. Hopefully we'll do this again one day.
Yeah, man. Good catching up with you. Sorry, I wasn't able to do it. We originally planned, but life is, and sometimes it's busy, sometimes it's not. But yeah, just like keep doing your thing, man. You're doing a good job, and good luck with those interviews coming up with those wrestlers. And I just appreciate you having me, man. Good talking to you.
You too, brother.
Later.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, man.